Program. Scottie Nell Hughes is on the line with us, news director and chief journalist at the Tea Party News Network, contributor to Patriot.tv and PatriotUpdate.com, website TPNN, as in Tea Party News Network.com. Scottie, great to have you with us.
Oh, thanks for having me back on, Tom. Always a joy to be with you.
Thank you. You wrote an article called One Nation Above God, in which you point out that the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte this past September voted not once, you say, but 3 times to deny the reinstatement of God into their platform. And you wrap this up. Your last paragraph says, Matthew 27:46, my, why hast thou forsaken me? Cried Jesus in his last few moments before he died on the cross at Calvary. Today, almost 2,000 years later, considering the pattern of anti-Christian actions, unfortunately not isolated to those Democrat residents, I'm assuming you mean Democratic Party, Democrat residents of Palm Beach County and the Democratic voters of the DNC, many Christians wonder if there is a line where God will ever forsake us. Are you suggesting that our political parties should be embracing any particular religion, in this case Christianity, that, for the purposes of politics? Really?
Well, obviously one of the big arguments is the separation of church and state, and many times that has been given over and over.
It's not just a big argument. It was part of the basis of the American Revolution.
Oh, well, but it's also, you got to realize what the separation of church and state is, how it's been twisted and formed. It's not like our founding fathers said that they did not want to be God in the country. Obviously, in God we trust. We look at different things.
That was in 1954. That was not the founding generation, Scottie. In God we trust was put on our coins in the 50s during the Eisenhower administration in response to Joe McCarthy's fear-mongering. But back to you. You will not find it in any of our founding documents.
Well, but you also have to realize what they didn't want was God in our government. They didn't want the government telling us what exactly we should or should not be doing in regards to our religion. More importantly, forcing us to do the same type of life that they had over in England. So fast forward to today where we have been sitting here, and traditionally Christians have been told to turn the other cheek when it comes to issues like this, which the story was, like you said, down in Palm Beach, the Professor Dr. Good, literally had them write Jesus on a piece of paper, meditate on it, and then stomp on the paper and destroy the paper. And the one student who didn't, the Mormon, who said, no, I cannot do this, was kicked out of class.
Well, that sounds crazy to me. But that's not the Democratic Party, Scottie. I mean, we can both find examples of people behaving crazily around religion, but your argument here is that over and over again, you say more and more people are trying to be more bold in desecrating our faith. I'm very concerned. I mean, James Madison and Thomas Jefferson had this big debate about the Establishment Clause. There shall be no establishment of religion in the United States, no official religion. That there shall be no religious test for any person to work for the government of the United States. Jefferson was concerned that if religious people ever took political office, that they might corrupt the government with their religion. Madison thought that was crazy, but he was worried that if the government ever started giving money to the churches, that would corrupt the churches. Madison was a Christian. Jefferson was not. He was a deist. But I think they ended up both being right. Madison's first veto as president of the United States, his 4th president of the United States, was to veto a bill that, starting in the George Washington administration, Congress had been directly giving money to a home for homeless people and poor people here in Washington, D.C., providing them with food, housing, and medical care. And during the Madison administration, Congress said, hey, let's run this through the church. And so they started, so they passed a bill saying, we're going to give this money to the Presbyterian Church here in Washington, D.C. to take care for the poor. Madison, that was his first veto. And he said, because giving money to a church begins the corruption of the churches. The government should not be in religion, and religion should not be in government.
But that's where you and I are different. That's where it kind of continues.
Well, apparently that's where you and James Madison are different.
Ideology, and then you can say that's those are the facts as you want to look at them. I want to look at it as the facts. They did not want to see what happened in England, which originally drove them out of England, happen here to where the.
Wait a minute. Do you know the story of Cromwell?
In every part of life, it was the church which was really the king, the government working through it.
Scottie, do you know the story of Cromwell?
They didn't want a country founded on God.
Do you know the story of Cromwell? What happened in England was that a fundamentalist Christian zealot, overthrew the king, and for 7 years, as I recall, ruled England and declared that dancing was illegal, singing was illegal. They started a really aggressive persecution of women. And finally, after 7 years, this was the Puritans, finally, after 7 years, the British people said, get rid of this. We want the damn king back. It was better with a king. And they threw Cromwell out. He got killed, as I recall. I mean, it's been a long time since I studied this part of British history. And those followers of Cromwell who still wanted to have, a ban on dancing and things like that, they got in a boat and came over to Massachusetts to Plymouth Rock, and they set up, their little theocracy here. And that group of Puritans in Massachusetts was the bane of the Founding Fathers. I mean, Ben Franklin used to go off on long. He fled Massachusetts when he was 17 years old because of the Puritans. Moved to Philadelphia. Philadelphia was like the anti-Puritan bastion.
Well, and for a while there, I was thinking you were describing Footloose. I was thinking maybe you had backtracked and had watched, the 1980s thriller Footloose. But,
no.
There are certain points, and this is where obviously we can talk about religious philosophies and what actually defined a true Christian and what did it and what was actually actions of the church and what was the government using the church. We can look at it.
Well, what did Jesus say when the centurion came to him?
And the fact that Christianity is under attack. We have seen prayer taken out of school, Christian prayer taken out of school. They can still have Muslim prayer. They can still have Buddhist prayer.
No,
they cannot have Christian prayer in school led by a teacher. We've seen Ten Commandments taken out of our judicial
Scottie, you're not representing the truth.
That's the problem. That's the issue.
No, wait a minute.
Religion's allowed to act except for Christians.
Maybe I'm wrong. But my understanding is that no teacher can lead any prayer of any religion. And that, on the other hand, if a kid wants to pray in school, whether it's praying to Allah or praying to Jesus, they are welcome to do that. There is no prohibition on prayer in school. There is a prohibition on somebody who takes a paycheck from the government deciding, dictating, and leading the prayer in school. And I want it that way, frankly, because the day, I even as a religious person, I guess I would say, the day may come when somebody decides that the religion that, I don't want, it to be Scientology or Mormonism or fill in the blank, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I probably just, angered, three different groups of my viewers and listeners, but, or fundamentalist Christians, anybody. I just don't think that we should be paying our tax dollars to have somebody indoctrinate our children in religion, even a religion we agree with.
What we did is, with this example, let me take what you just said. Our tax dollars went to buy the textbooks that had this exercise in it that specifically mentioned to stomp on the name of Jesus. Yeah. So you just sat there and you just proved my point. The fact that there is
that shouldn't be, Scottie. You and I agree on that.
It didn't say any.
That shouldn't be
symbol. It said Jesus specifically.
No, well, that shouldn't be. I mean, if what you're saying is true, and I'm guessing that that's no longer the case. That the first time somebody pointed that out, that book was history. But if that's true,
it's still there.
Then
the university is still using it.
Well, then I join with you in condemning that.
And this textbook is in universities across the United States, paid for by taxpayer dollars. That right there proves my point that there is an assault. Didn't mention Muhammad, didn't mention Buddha, didn't mention anything else. It mentioned Jesus specifically, and that's where we have an issue right now.
Okay, well, let's get rid of that book from any schools.
But it's not just one book. There's a publisher that published that book. There's somebody else that published a book that goes along with it. There's a whole.
But what you want to do is you want to put a different book into the school that says promote religion, and that worries me.
I think I agree in an equal tolerance across the board, but this one was an outright attack on Jesus and those that pertain to his faith.
Okay.
And it was approved by the
Scottie Nell Hughes, news director, chief journalist, the Tea Party News or TPNN.com. Thank you, Scottie.